in our elementary schools. And I know in your county, in Escambia County, they were put back on the shelves in elementary schools. One of my daughters is 7 years old, and it terrifies me as a mother to think that she can see something like that, and it will she will come up with multiple questions what that means, and it's the whole opening the whole new world to new, it's like leading. That's a definition of indoctrination.
Right.
What do you think about that, Rich?
Well, I'm a strong proponent of getting back to the basics. It ought to be about education and not about indoctrination.
That's right.
And this indoctrination can be very subtle. It can be a couple of words in a book. Vicky Baggett demonstrated this just the other day in a Captain Underpants book that was, I think we had 60 or 70 books in our school libraries, and just with a very subtle reference to alternative lifestyles. Okay, and it's deliberate. This is strategic. And again, I think we need to get away from the indoctrination. Let's get back to the basics of educating our kids, making sure that they're ready for the world when they graduate. They know how to read, they know how to write, they know how to,
they know history.
Good math skills, true history without the revisionism.
We need to go back to the 1980s history books,
Yeah.
maybe.
Or maybe even before, even before that.
Real
And
history.
critical thinking skills and problem solving and constitutional citizenship.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yes.
That sounds wonderful. And I wanted to ask one question, since you brought getting back to the basics. I know a big issue right now, and it's I read it in the news, that big issue is the cell phones available in the classrooms. That it became a big problem and a big debate whether kids should have availability of their cell phones in the classroom, and teachers are struggling about navigation of that. And what do you, as a future school board member, what's your take on this?
Well, number one, I think the state of Louisiana did something amazing, because they have outlawed the use of cell phones in the classroom. So there are no cell phones in the classrooms in the state of Louisiana. I think that's great. Kids can do without their cell phones for an hour. Okay, they can pick them up afterwards. They're a distraction.
I did.
They're a distraction. And as Kevin Adams pointed out, we have a whole body of data that show that kids that are in classrooms without their cell phones will do better. They'll do better academically.
Of course.
And there's so much more to it. It'll preempt, cheating on exams, and communicating with one another, just not paying attention and listening to this or that. There shouldn't be any cell phones in the classroom, period. Louisiana got it right. Florida needs to follow suit.
Absolutely.
What will be the very first thing you do as school board member when you're elected?
Well, I'm a people guy, and I like mixing it up with people. And I'm going to, I'm already doing this, but I'll be in communication with the superintendent and all the stakeholders, from the administrators to the teachers to the parents. We need to collectively and creatively raise the bar on public education, make it more competitive. We don't want to lose any more kids to private school, to homeschool, to charter schools.
Right.
Because when that happens, every time a child leaves, and we lost 1,600 in the last couple of years, and with that
In Escambia County?
in Escambia County, 1,600. I had a good chat with.
Seems like the population is growing. How are we losing students in the school system?
Well, parents they have the authority to put their kids where they want them to be.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of reasons why public schools should be very competitive.
Right.
If you have active kids, you've got, like Washington High, my kids attended their world-class theater program. Great athletic programs, ROTC programs, orchestra, band, all these things.
A lot of the schools have great programs.
Yeah.
But a lot of these schools also have something underlying that is not good. I know that violence in some of these schools, fights break out. Right. Teachers aren't allowed to break it up.
Well, this is interesting that you say. My dad was a public schools teacher in New York. And I remember I was a young officer in the Navy
in the
at the time.
60s?
No, this goes back to when it's the 80s now.
Okay.
I was already an officer in the Navy, probably a lieutenant at the time. And I remember flying home to see my dad because, in addition to being a teacher, was a football coach. Okay, and he wasn't accustomed to having kids say inappropriate things to him in the class. Okay,
Right.
and it was. And there was no support from the administration. There was no support from the school board. And these teachers are out there. How can you conduct class when you have flagrant disregard for authority in the classroom?
Right.
Now, that cannot be. That's got to be nipped in the bud.
Yes.
That's got to, and it can happen. And the superintendent sets the tone. He's the one that's recommending the administrators, the principals and vice principals. And there's got to be order and discipline. If there's not, then if there's no order and discipline, then I wouldn't have my kid there.
And it's about teaching kids in their early stages about the justice system, showing them this godly authority
Absolutely.
that, they have to follow the rules and the discipline has to be
Law and
number one.
order.
The law and order. And if there's no...
And discipline if you do wrong.
Yes. And it's got to have teeth.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if it doesn't, you're going to say the same thing over and
It
over
can't
again.
just be empty threats.
So, yeah.
And I want to mention one thing that the competitive schools and that we're losing enrollment, it's happening in Santa Rosa County and Escambia County. And a lot that has to do with school choice that Governor
and the
DeSantis,
vouchers.
the vouchers, now that parents can take this funding from the public school if they don't want their child to attend public schools and they can use it in private school. And when public schools fail to be competitive, that's what's happening. Parents choose private schools, Christian schools, where they know their children will not have access to pornographic materials. And I think when we fix that problem, public schools will stop losing enrollment as quickly with this rapid speed right now.
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to ask you, Rich, also talking about Title IX change, that's Biden's regulation that happening. Actually, it's going to take effect if none of the lawsuits against that unconstitutional regulation will not succeed. It will take effect August 1st of 2024. And I have emailed our school district in Santa Rosa County asking them what actions you're going to take or preparations, so to say, to get ready for that regulation. Now, for our viewers, I will mention that this regulation means that biological males would be allowed in females' bathrooms, which is a
this
disaster.
is from Governor DeSantis?
No, ma'am, that is from
Federal.
Biden.
From
That's
Washington.
federal.
This is from Washington.
So basically, every institution that receives federal funding would have to adopt this new change. And to my opinion, I would say this is a disaster. This is going to be the end of public education. If you're talking about competitive schools, this is going to be a complete disaster. And as a future school board member, what do you think? And I'm also trying to lay out the plan on how we can prepare for that, because the response I got from Santa Rosa County School Board chairwoman was not what I was expecting.
Right.
It was basically, when the dust settles, we're going to adopt our policies appropriately.
Yeah.
Which to me, it's like, you are not going to fight for our kids. You're going to allow this to happen, and it's opening the doors for sexual predators.
So Barack Obama did the same thing. And Malcolm Thomas was our superintendent at the time. And David was in elementary school. He was at AK Suter. This was probably 2015 when Barack Obama
got reelected.
Yeah, it was sometime in there. Anyway, I called Malcolm Thomas and I said, "So what are we going to do here in Escambia County Schools?" He said, "Not going to happen.
There you go.
That's
not gonna
that
happen.
simple.
That's
it's that simple.
yes.
Not going to happen."
It's that simple.
That was his answer.
Look,
it was short. Not going to happen.
I'm accustomed to, being in the military for 32 years.
You may as well just take the male and female, men and women, boys and girls signs off.
No.
And just let them go wherever they feel like going.
Not a chance.
You may as well do
Not a
that.
chance.
It's
Not on my watch. That won't happen. That won't happen. And if the superintendent, and it's not going to happen with Keith Leonard either, but if it were, then the school board holds his feet to the fire and they find somebody else that gets it, a leader that'll stand up against this ridiculous, culture war
That's
says, not here. And with a governor like
there's no way
DeSantis,
it
it's
could
not going to
happen.
happen here either. He'll intervene. I know he will, just based on who he is. But
He better.
He better.
He
Otherwise,
better.
again, who's Caesar here in the United States? We are. Okay, we're Caesar.
Exactly.
So,
and it has to start with local level, going to state and telling the federal government, you are not going to control.
Can you imagine how many people would show up at Escambia County School Board meetings if Keith Leonard said, okay, men, the boys can now use the girls' bathroom? That's not.
No, it's.
I
Look,
can't see that happening.
But the enemy's at the gate.
That's
we
right.
have to stand in the gap.
Exactly.
And we just have to say no, okay?
And that's exactly the question,
yeah.
the answer I was expecting from our current school district.
Yeah,
you know,
you would
I was
think.
expecting that we're not
hard
going to let that
no.
have hard no, that we are going to do everything we can, and we're going to fight against
It's
that.
not gonna
I did not get this response,
That's-
unfortunately.
I'm doing this for one reason only: protect the kids.
Yes.
Okay? This should not happen. If I'm elected, it will not happen.
And I see that passion in your
Okay.
eyes to
It won't- it
protect
will not
children, and this is
Yeah.
great. This is absolutely great. I wish every current school board member, and in any administrative position, would have the same response: the strong, protecting children. This is all about.
Absolutely.
them.
Well, I'm sure we have more questions, but we do need to take a commercial break. We want to remind our viewers that the Thornton Review is doing an interview with the candidate series. As a candidate, if you would like to request to come onto the show, please message us on our Facebook page, The Thornton Review Show, or you can email us at thethorntonreview@yahoo.com. Facebook is The Thornton Review Show. Email is thethorntonreview@yahoo.com. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Rich Holtznick for Escambia County School Board District 4.
There is no government-funded program that can guide a man's thoughts. Only God can do that.
Hi, I'm Pam Childers. I'm the elected clerk and comptroller, and I invite you to watch the Thornton Review for current information. It's best to stay informed, and you can do that at Thornton Review.
Hello, I'm Rich Holtznick, candidate for Escambia County School Board District 4. I watch the Thornton Review. This is unfiltered information that you won't get anywhere else. I encourage you to watch the Thornton Review.
Alpha Fence Company can install any type of fence. When you call and mention the Thornton Review, you'll receive a $100 discount on your fence. They also offer military discounts. Vinyl fence, wood fence, aluminum fence, chain link fence. If it has the word fence, Alpha Fence Company can do it. 850-586-8020. 850-586-8020. Tell me. So, Rich, when you're elected, what are your goals? What do you want to see? What direction do you want to take the school board?
Okay. Well, number one. Go ahead.
More specifically, what would you like to see each school do? Like, are there programs in the schools? Like, what needs to be changed? What needs to be added? But go on with your thought. I didn't mean to break your train of thought.
Let me start by saying this. If you go back 20 years, Escambia County school system was ranked in the top 5 in the state of Florida.
That's when my son started school.
It was a
Pre-K.
top 5 county. Now, I don't know exactly where we are now, but we're way down the pecking order towards the bottom, okay? That needs to be reversed, okay?
Okay.
And how do you do that? Well, you got to recruit and retain good teachers. Okay? Now, teachers, I met some extraordinary teachers in my 19 years of kids going through the public school system.
Right, here in Escambia County.
Right here in
I grew up in the Escambia
Yeah.
County school system, so did my son,
Yeah.
and there are great teachers.
there are great
They're
teachers.
great teachers
There are
here.
great teachers. Now,
Great schools
now,
and great teachers.
I all 4 of my children had the same kindergarten teacher, Paula Patterson. She was
Yeah.
terrific.
Yeah.
And I could name names,
Yeah.
but you know, some great teachers. But retaining them's a problem right now. You know, Governor DeSantis has done a great job increasing the starting salary of teachers, okay, to make it more competitive. And I've spoken to a lot of teachers in the last couple of months. So the starting salary has been bumped up considerably. It's at $47,500 now. Okay, it's taken a number of years for that to happen. It's a good number.
That's amazing.
But
That's good.
but what happens though is we have something called salary compression. So the veteran teachers aren't making a whole lot more, and it's discouraging to them.
Right.
I spoke to one teacher. I said, "Well, you know, what do you get for a master's degree?" She goes, "An extra $2,500 for the year, the same as it's been for over 30 years." You know, so we need to come up with some ways to incentivize teachers.
Yes.
We want to retain the good ones. We don't want to lose them. I spoke to one teacher. She was the media specialist of the year, and she's going to another state. She's taking a lateral move because she's going to get more money. Okay, so the primary incentive obviously is money, but there are other incentives. I've talked to another woman that came from Texas, and she's here because her parents are elderly and she needed to be here, but she's still teaching. She took a significant pay cut. However, she was happy, and I asked her why. She goes, "I've got a great principal, and I've got a great assistant principal, and they value my expertise and my opinions, and I feel like I'm with family."
That's great.
So that's good. So that's good. So I'm going to say that.
That's
yeah,
important.
yeah.
To,
So there are non-monetary incentives.
Yeah.
But one of them is, and this is the responsibility of the superintendent, he must ensure that we have the best and brightest for administrators, for vice principals and principals, because if they are team builders and leaders, then we'll retain good teachers. If not, if they're doing it for other reasons other than the children, if they're doing it because they like being in charge, and they're not building a team, we don't need that kind.
You're actually stepping ahead of my question, because that was my question. What do you think about the teachers' pay, and if the veteran teachers should increase a higher pay because of the years being teachers and their experience? And that actually was my response, just aligned with yours at the last debate that I attended as a school board candidate, that I completely agree with you, that the veteran teachers, they should have increased pay, and that will also help the newer teacher, the younger teachers, to strive for something,
Right.
to work for something and look forward to be appreciated. That will help us to retain real good teachers. So I'm very glad you responded the same way.
These veteran teachers are being asked to do things like mentor to the new ones. So they're not being compensated for it. So I actually spoke with the assistant superintendent for finances. Because we got a huge budget in Escambia County. It's all summed up for the year, it's close to $800 million.
wow.
So but you would think it would be simple to find a pocket of money to reward some of these good teachers, to retain them.
But all that's accounted for, huh?
But it's harder than you think, and and he also mentioned every time you lose a kid, you lose that full-time equivalent pot of money. So you lose 1,600 kids. Guess what? You just lost $13 million that you might have been able to use to incentivize a teacher. So we're going to have to look at the, all the, what do we call them? The sacred cows in our budget. Because I guarantee you, with an $800 million budget, we can find some money somewhere. And we used to have to do it in the military all the time. Find some money somewhere to incentivize and retain these teachers.
That's exactly, you're absolutely right. We have to be fiscal conservatives. We have to look through every budget line item and see where we can find and prioritize our expenditures. Because like in our district, for instance, and one of the things that we have made a resolution and presented it before our school administration is to cut ties with ALA, which is a radical left organization that was led by Marxist, lesbian. They're heavily promoting pornographic materials, and even training librarians and teachers how to be distancing the child from the parents,
Right.
and hide all those ideologies from parents. Now, our school district allocated $200,000 to that organization or affiliate in Florida of ALA's fame. And I was, just one of those thinking that I had, like, this is an expenditure that basically indoctrinating
That's a
our
waste.
children.
That's a waste.
Now, another thing that I would look into is the expenditures that the district makes for traveling. Non-essential travels should be cut. We had like this EC standards, which is UNESCO standards that our district is implementing.
Right.
I don't think that Escambia County has that, and it's more from UN playbook on the goals, how to transform public education.
Right.
Our district currently using standards from their playbook, and they sending teachers and librarians. Last year, they spent $50,000 for just this travel for teachers and librarians
Right.
and administrative staff to go there and participate in that. To me, I think this is another indoctrination camp for
There you go.
educators.
Yeah, let's get back to the basics. Educate. If we talk about indoctrinating the children, we don't need to be indoctrinating teachers.
That's right.
Right?
That's
we
exactly
need to unburden
right.
them. Take off the administrative burdens that they have.
Take
Let them
out
get
the
back to the
social
basics.
issues, and
Yeah.
like you keep saying,
Right.
get back to the
Get back to
basics:
basics.
reading, writing, math, history, science, and maybe a career path.
Yep.
That's
Career
right.
paths
Yep.
are important
Yep.
in high school.
Not every kid's
the-
not every
right.
kid's going to go to college, but every kid ought to be prepared.
They can do something that
for the
isn't
workforce.
college.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's right.
A
Yeah.
skill, a trade.
Yep, I agree.
And schools need to be preparing them for that.
They do.
But they also need to be able to read and write. It all starts at home. The parents are the very first teachers. The parents are the very first source of government and authority over the children. If the parents aren't active in the children's schooling and if in their lives, if they're not disciplining the children at home, it doesn't matter what the schools are doing. The children are not going to survive in school if the parents aren't doing their job. It all starts at home.
I agree.
So-
I agree. If the foundation crumbles, what can the righteous do? That parents are, and this is why it's important. Parents need to be engaged. And when I first started with my kids, I was a busy man. I was working. I had 4 children. I was a single parent. I still found time to start up a dad's club. Okay, and we were doing stuff with our children. And if kids didn't have a dad, they were welcome to the fishing rodeos and the movie nights in our pajamas at the library, or the hikes and the picnics and all those sort of things. But one of my stated things is I don't want to ever see a wedge driven between a parent and a child, ever. Nothing done in secret.
Right, exactly.
Parents have a full seat at the table, unless it's a 1 in a million. Well, maybe not 1 in a million, but unless there's an issue of abuse or sexual abuse, there should be nothing done in secret between administrators, teachers, and the children that we're entrusting to their care
Exactly.
on a daily basis to be educated.
Yeah. So the very first job of the school, in my opinion, is to keep the children safe.
I agree.
Obey the law and keep the children safe.
I agree.
With these books, they're not obeying the law because these books are breaking the law. And that's when I say that the book review committees are stacked. They're looking at the literary value. They're looking at this list of questions, but not one of the questions has the law in it. What is it? 864 or something like that? 847.
847.
847. So that should be the number one question. Does this book fall under the guidelines of this law 847? And if it has one picture of something that you don't want your children to see, then it probably falls under that law. Get it out. And but it's stated. The law is not mentioned in the criteria that the book review committee is using. It's not mentioned. The law needs to be number one. And it needs to be 847. It needs to be written out. Does the book violate this law? If it does, if there's one page on that book that violates that law,
Out it goes.
that book goes. But they're not looking at that. They're looking at the overall. Okay, just because it has one page forget that.
Right.
Look at the overall,
No.
and they're not even
No.
looking at the law.
Black
at
and
all.
white. Vicki Baggett and I discussed this at this week's regular school board meeting. There are certain things that an elementary and middle school child are not supposed to be exposed to, and alternative lifestyles is one of them. Okay, so you can't just sneak it in through the books that are in the library. This is deliberate. This is strategic. That needs to be stopped. Okay. Again, this is not about indoctrination. This is about education. So,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. And Rich, I have one question that always comes up with, at least with our school district. They always say, they like to brag about that no parents ever sign, well, maybe like one or few parents sign this form that would prohibit children from getting access to school library
It's the
materials.
The opt-out form.
Right. And that's what they like to say. Well, parents are okay with that.
Oh, that's terrible.
My question, my take on that, and in fact, we just had this discussion with few of the opposition. I believe one of them was a teacher that was suing Governor DeSantis for 1557 law. Yeah,
Let 'em
like
sue.
how they
Let
like
'em
to say
sue.
this, no say gay bill.
The
How
answer
they
is
saying,
still no. Let
which
them
is of
sue.
course not about that, but that's just a talking points for the radical left. So I asked them a question and I said, does this form include the language why they might want to restrict some of the access to some of the materials? Do you actually
That's it.
specify on the form saying if you will sign unlimited access to for your child, then your child can potentially have access to pornographic, sexual explicit materials or materials that will promote alternate genders and
Lifestyles.
yes, lifestyles and stuff like that.
Satanism.
Right.
How to make a bomb.
That was my question. And the lady actually answered, honestly, she said no. I asked the same question of one of the librarians in Santa Rosa County School District. And she said that she doesn't remember, which I'm sure she
Wow,
does.
yeah.
But that is
Well,
my...
that's a no. If they don't remember,
Right,
it's a no.
it's a no. Of course, it's a no. We know it is a no. And would that be one of the things that you would consider as a board member to change this and to include some language on the form?
We need a community standard. We've been beating the drum on this.
Yeah.
We need to have a matrix that says what's appropriate, what's age appropriate, what's developmentally appropriate for elementary, middle, and high school. It's very simple. And Vicki has offered that up to all the school board members and to the superintendent. We need a community standard because without that, then people are just going to make ideological decisions on every book, and that's gotten us nowhere. We've been doing it for 2 years. We've removed, I think, 9 books. Okay, in 2 years.
Yeah.
It's going to take us 2 decades. I say it could be done in a
Yeah.
minute because
Yes, absolutely.
you go through the books, you determine what's. Look, this goes back to my military thing again.
I say we prevent the books from coming into the book review committee is on the wrong end. It's on the back end.
I agree.
We need it on the front end. We need to review the books before they come in.
I agree with that too. And an example was given at the last school board meeting where, okay, this one fresh in, published in 2024.
Yeah. How did it get in?
Yeah.
It's because we don't have a book review committee on the front end. It's ridiculous. It's like opening the borders.
What I'd like to
Open the
see-
borders, let all the books in, and then we try to get out the bad ones. That's
I'd
not
rather
working.
have
It's
book
not
review
working.
committee that's looking at what great books are out there that are not on our
Yeah,
shelves. How about
find
that?
the good books.
How about that? Now these other ones that have no redeeming value, that are encouraging kids to this is
They're
just,
breaking the law.
They're-
The
they're-
books that are breaking the law. There's no redeeming value in a book that's breaking 847.
right. They should be removed. And this I spoke to the superintendent at this week's meeting, saying, citing a superintendent in Texas who said, even if there was not a single book challenged by a parent or a member of the community, it is my responsibility to make sure that these books are appropriate for the children in the school district, even if no one challenged a single book.
Yes.
And that's the truth.
Yeah.
If you man
absolutely
up
right.
and you do the right thing, you get rid of the stuff that shouldn't be there and done with it. Okay, done. It shouldn't be there. Over. Gone. 232 books. Gone.
Yeah,
Could be done tomorrow.
Yes, you're completely correct. We have one of the gentlemen that's participating in our movement and Moms for Liberty member. He's also a veteran, a Vietnam veteran, in fact, and he says the same thing. It's not our responsibility as a citizens or as a parents to
Right.
challenge the books. It's the
not.
responsibility of the district. That we need to have representatives that follow the community standards and get rid of this things that I mean, everybody knows that 7 years old or 11 years old, they should have access to materials that promote alternate genders. That's why we have even the suicide rate is going up. You know, we have to look into those kind of outcomes. Why we have even suicide rates amongst youth?
It's a combination of things. That, like I said, it starts at
Right.
home. It's the parents. What are the parents doing? Are the parents active in the children's lives? Are they active in their school? Are the kids are the moms at work? When the kid comes home from school, they're a latchkey kid. They go in and they play violent video games all day, you know, and eat junk food.
And I
And then
agree,
they
it's
go
a
to bed at
combination.
midnight, and then they get up. They don't get a good breakfast. They get to school late. They're tired. They're hungry, and they're not participating in school. But
See, the thing, I agree with you 100%. It is a complicated problem. It has many different areas that influencing this problem. But as a taxpayers, we investing in the future of our country. And currently, our investment goes to sexualizing children. And I, as a taxpayer, I do not want my money to go into this indoctrination that damaging and harming children. That's but the bottom line. Yeah, we can say they can find access a lot of those, you know, talking points. They can have access to this over their phones, or if parents don't pay attention. I understand that, but we're talking about specifically public education. We cannot prevent what's going on in every single family, and this is not our business. We cannot do that,
Exactly.
possibly, but we can be advocates and save our public education.
We can make sure that our schools are safe, that our
That's
classrooms
right.
are safe.
Exactly.
That there's good order and discipline in the classrooms, and that kids can access gay porn hub sites
That's
on their
right.
on their
cell phone while
on
during
their on their
class.
no on their Chromebook
Yeah.
that was
Amen
issued by
to
the
that.
county
Yeah.
Yes.
because of
Yes.
That too.
hyperlinks that have been provided by the publisher and other ideologues. So we need to make sure we can't control what's going on at home,
And we
That's
but
right.
we
also-
can control what's going on in the classroom.
That's
and we
right.
have to monitor the education material that's coming in. Not after it's already in. We have to monitor what's coming into the schools, the education material. There's an education review committee. We need to find out who's on that committee, if you don't already
That's
know.
another one. This has got a lot of tentacles.
Who is on that committee and what is the rubric they're using to bring in the education material?
All good questions.
Yeah.
I recognize there's going to be a learning curve, but one thing I know, I've probably had 25 jobs in the military. You go in, you know nothing about it, but within a couple of months you figure it out.
Absolutely.
And I will
That's
figure
right.
this out. I will
Yes.
figure this out. I will be
It's an
value
evolution,
added.
yeah.
Yeah, I will be value added to this school board, and we will do the right thing the best we can.
Absolutely, absolutely. I see your heart is in the right place, and you have self-discipline, and I can see you doing a great job.
Yeah, I see you have a vision, you have a focus. You want to get back to basics. You want law and order in the classroom. You want the children to be safe. You care about the education material. You care about the law.
I do.
Law and order, the law. That's important. So,
Yeah, with a biblical worldview, Michelle. I think back to the time of the judges. It was never a good thing for everyone to do that which was right in their own eyes. Things always work better when you do things God's way. You do them your own way, stand by.
Amen to that.
Stand by. Yeah,
That's right.
so you were 17 when you graduated high school?
I was.
And how long was it before you went into the Navy?
I went right from, I graduated from high school,
And you already
and
knew
I
you
went
wanted
right to the Naval Academy.
What made you decide to go to the Naval Academy?
I was the oldest of 6 children. I had an academic scholarship to Notre Dame. But
Really?
Yeah, but the scholarship at the Naval Academy
Were you a
was
straight
better.
A student?
I was.
And so you decided to go into the Navy. Did you have like a focus, like a job that you were focusing on in the Navy? You said you had like 25 different jobs. It sounds like you just kind of were a jack of all trades. And
No, you just, the way they do it,
they assign you.
They assign
They
you.
see what you're good at and they assign you.
Yeah, that's right. And they try to promote those that that are good naval officers.
So you were fixed wing pilot.
I was
6,000 flight hours.
slightly
Global.
less. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah.
That's-
Upwards of almost 6,000
Over how many years?
over 28 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so I did a lot of flying,
And it's obvious-
lots of flying. Even when I was doing my diplomatic service, as the naval attaché in Israel and Turkey, I had an airplane. So I had a C-12, so I was still had opportunity to fly.
So you weren't combat.
Well, when I say combat, I served in. How do you determine what's a combat zone? There are people that
Shooting that you're avoiding. Bombs going off.
So I was a Desert Storm task group commander.
Right.
So I was monitoring all the shipping going in and out of the Persian Gulf. We were going down, looking at every
Right,
every
okay.
ship that went in or out.
Wow.
We were monitoring it. We're taking pictures of it. So if
That's gotta be
if
some-
it's an ongoing war and
Yeah.
you are a task group commander, you're a combat vet.
Yeah.
And I was in combat zones 3 times, including when I was in Turkey, when we were redeploying people out of Iraq into Turkey. And that's so everybody. I have great respect for those that serve, and we all serve in different capacities. And one thing I could say, and I could tell you, there's probably nobody in Pensacola. I probably had hundreds of Russian and Chinese fighter aircraft on my wing. I don't think there's anybody that can say that.
Wow.
Because even though it was peacetime during the Cold War, when you're flying off the Russian coast, the
That's
Chinese
scary,
coast,
yeah.
every time we went flying,
That's
we had a Russian or
threatening.
Chinese fighter aircraft on our wing.
Yeah.
And we actually had one aircraft that was down because a Chinese aircraft hit it. And they had to land on some Chinese island, and the Chinese,
They're shooting at it.
well, no, their fighter aircraft hit it.
Wow.
It ran into it, knocked 2
Wow.
engines off the airplane.
Wow.
Yeah. So everyone's got their stories, everyone's got their experience.
Yeah.
And I was happy to have served, proud to have served. I'll say one more thing too. At Washington High, my wife went there. She's a graduate of Washington High. One of my Naval Academy classmates was a graduate of Washington High. He was a 4-star admiral, the commander of the Pacific Fleet, a classmate. And my brother-in-law's memorial is right in front of Washington High too. He was a Marine killed in Iraq. So we understand service, patriotism, and our kids are. It's all about the kids.
Well, thank you for your service. You
pleasure.
did a
Yes.
lot. You have quite an extensive career. And then coming home and raising your family because of a tragic death of your wife. I'm sorry to hear about that, but you picked up the pieces and you moved on and you did the best you could with your children, and they actually did very well. So I commend you for that. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you
and
for
Maria,
having
thank
me.
you so much for coming on the show and being a co-host. I could
I
not
enjoyed
think
that.
of a more appropriate co-host for
Thank
this particular
Thank
show,
you.
and this series of, the interview with the candidate school board series.
It was a great time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The Thornton Review is on the air to provide public service awareness and intellectual infrastructure to our community. You can watch our program on our newest outlet, Pensacola Urban Network, Praise TV on WBQP 12.1 and 12.8, and you can watch us on Praise TV on ROKU Television Network, or download Praise TV on Google Play Store. Our website, thethorntonreview.com, and our Facebook page, The Thornton Review Show. This show was made possible by Ida Gates Godly Teas LLC, Alpha Fence Company, our guest, Rich Holtzknecht, for Escambia County School Board District 4. And we want to thank my co-host, Maria Calkins. It was a pleasure to have you on the show today. We want to thank you for watching this episode of the Thornton Review. Bye-bye.